What's up, Clemson Nation? What's up, college football fans? The bye week is finally over, and it's Notre Dame week for Clemson. And the college football rankings have officially come out for the first time this year, and it's great to be back in them. For Clemson, after the year we had last year, which for most teams would be a great year, but for Clemson in its recent run is a letdown. So, with the rankings comes a lot of controversy, a lot of stuff to talk about. Not that these first rankings matter. The stats say that all four of these teams are definitely not going to make it. It's never happened before, the initial four making it. So it's fun to talk about. It gives us college football fans something to debate, to talk about. And in my opinion, it's another reason why the college football playoff needs to go ahead and expand to 12, because there's just a lot of what's going on? A lot of rankings that don't make sense. So obviously top five is Tennessee at number one. Congrats to them. I think that's deserved. Tennessee has looked very good this year, much better than many other teams in the past, and still a lot of work to do. They have to play Georgia this week in Athens after Georgia falls from number one in the AP to number 3 in the college football playoff rankings, which is going to add a lot of motivation. Plus that game is in Athens. So it's going to be a very, very, very big test for Tennessee, much bigger than the Alabama test, which was at home at night. So it's going to be a very interesting game to watch there. Number 2 following them is Ohio State. Again, no problem with it right now. Ohio State's looked pretty good. That being said, their schedule it's been laughable. The Big Ten is way down this year, but their offense has impressed. Their defense has played good. Not that they've played a bunch of good offenses, but they've looked better than last year, just like Clemson has. Number 3, coming in is Georgia, the defending national champions. Number 4 is Clemson. A lot of people thought that Clemson would be 5 or 6. The strength of record and the strength of schedule pretty much as well, beating 3 currently ranked teams, although they're not top teams, still top 25 teams, definitely helped Clemson's case. And then Michigan follows up Clemson at number 5 with Alabama number 6 and TCU number 7. Those are the top 7 real contenders right now. Oregon right behind them. They could definitely make some noise at 8. So there's just not a lot of logic here. There's clearly a lot of SEC bias, which the SEC is the best conference. I mean, I understand the bias, but at the same time, it's still overrated. LSU is not the 10th best team in the country. They're not. I'm sorry. The SEC West is down compared to what they usually are this year. There's no doubt about that. They do not have 2 top 10 teams. I'm sorry. But that being said, LSU has a shot at Bama in the other Death Valley this week. So TCU definitely deserves to be ahead of Alabama. It just doesn't make much sense there. TCU has always been just hated by the rankings, dating back to the first college football playoff back in 2014. And then, before that, Big 12 teams besides Texas and Oklahoma have just been pretty much laughed at by the polls. TCU has a better resume than Alabama. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. I mean, they've looked way better. Alabama could very easily be a 3-loss team. Had they not hurt Texas's quarterback, they would be a 2-loss team for sure. And, if Jimbo Fisher had half a brain, they'd be a 3-loss team. So Alabama does not belong in the top 6. We'll see what they do the rest of the year. If they win the SEC, obviously that changes. So a lot of just confusion there in the rankings. And then you move up to 5 and 4, Clemson and Michigan. A lot of arguments there. Michigan fans and Ohio State fans at that have they've always been this way. Look, the Big Ten has 2 good teams and 2 very good teams in Ohio State and Michigan. Penn State's solid. The rest of the conference is not good. Not good. I mean, it's the worst it's ever been. The Big Ten has never had more than 1 contender. Other than Michigan, if you could even call them a contender last year after they got blasted by Georgia. Nobody besides Ohio State has done anything close to a national championship in that conference in decades, since Michigan won it in '97, I believe, was the last time. I believe maybe Nebraska had one after that. I can't remember. But man, that conference is overhyped every year. They just can't hang with the South and most of the Southern teams, whether it be the ACC powers or the SEC powers that play them. But this year, like I said, Michigan and Ohio State are good. Michigan, you've played nobody. You cannot schedule. I have a huge gripe with anybody who only schedules 9 Power 5 teams. And there's a lot of ACC, SEC, and Big Ten teams that do it. And it's pathetic. It's a joke. And you should be heavily penalized. You can talk about Clemson's non-conference schedule so far this year because they've played Furman and Louisiana Tech, but we have Notre Dame this week. Not that they're a world beater this year, but massively better than anybody that Michigan played out of conference. And South Carolina, again, not great, but better than anybody that they've played out of conference. Michigan, you got to schedule like big boys if you want to be a big boy, because your division, other than Ohio State and Penn State, is horrible. The other division's horrible. You can't just live on Big Ten alone. And that's what Clemson learned a long time ago. That's why Clemson always schedules 10 Power 5 conference teams and normally has a ranked team on top of South Carolina. This year, Notre Dame just happened to collapse. So come on, Michigan, get with the big boys. You guys, with your schedule, your sneak past Maryland, who would finish 6th in the ACC Atlantic, was not impressive. You did have a very impressive game against Penn State at home, but the rest of your schedule is so weak outside Ohio State, it's tough to see. I think they do play Illinois, so that should be interesting. Not that Illinois is great. But moving up, Michigan, then you got Clemson. Obviously, a lot of people have gripes with Clemson. The Syracuse game really hurt Clemson, even though Syracuse was healthy and pretty good. You have 4 turnovers and you win. That shows that you're pretty good if you can do that. But on the same side, DJ looked terrible, and it just added a whole another element of question marks to Clemson. Had Clemson come out and not turn the ball over and dominated Syracuse, I don't think there would be any question. Clemson probably would be competing for the number 3 spot. But because of that one Syracuse game, questions are up in the air. Clemson needs to really come out and dominate Notre Dame, dominate Louisville, and dominate Miami, and dominate South Carolina. We really need to get it together and start putting together double-digit wins here. Clemson, like 2018 and 2019, doesn't have cupcakes every week. Only a couple of ACC teams we play are cupcakes, Miami being one of them. Didn't see that coming. It's just been, not that we're playing great teams every week, but the ACC has gotten a lot better to where all the teams, or almost all the teams in our division, are very solid. You know, the 4th place team, Florida State, just beat the possible best team in the SEC West. A lot of good, Syracuse beat the 2nd best team in the Big Ten West, I think, who still has a great, possible chance of winning that division, I think, behind Illinois. So ACC stacking up some good non-conference games for some reason. The top teams, Syracuse and North Carolina, can't beat Notre Dame, but hopefully Clemson will stuff them this week. And then ahead of Clemson, of course, is Georgia. Georgia, again, like Michigan, has played an extremely weak schedule outside of the very impressive win against Oregon, which is the 2nd most impressive win outside of Alabama. And honestly, I think that Oregon is, at this point, the way they're playing, a better win than Alabama. So Georgia may have the best win. Plus, it wasn't a home game, even though it was close enough to it in Atlanta, whereas Tennessee got a night game at home and really needed a bunch of lucky breaks to beat Alabama. I mean, in my opinion, still Georgia has the most impressive win of the year, and it's honestly not that close the way they dealt with Oregon versus the way that Tennessee played. Still a very good Alabama team. And then, once you get to that top 3, those 3 teams, I think, although they've all had close games, people kind of see them as separating themselves from the rest of the field. But a lot of that's going to change because a lot of those guys still have to play each other. I personally, if I was making the rankings, I'd still have Tennessee number 1. I would have Georgia number 2. I'd probably have them tied with Ohio State number 2. Both have played very easy schedules. But like I said, Georgia has the most impressive win. Obviously, if Georgia beats Tennessee, automatically back to number 1, which I think we'll see. And obviously, Tennessee would easily be number 1 still if they win. And then you got the Ohio State-Michigan game. The loser of that probably doesn't deserve to go based on how weak the schedules are. The best win would be, and the only real quality win would probably be against Penn State, because Illinois probably will fizzle out here and be a 3 or 4 loss team. So 1 loss Michigan or Ohio State absolutely doesn't deserve to make it. But at the same time, I doubt a 1 loss Clemson team will make it. So we have to kind of take care of business here. TCU in the same boat. They're just hoping a lot of teams ahead of them lose. very interesting here. The logic was, it was all over the place. Common opponents and all of this just doesn't seem to make sense. Florida State's sitting there with a top 10 win, but they're not ranked. But Texas is ranked with no quality wins with the same record. TCU undefeated with I think more ranked wins than Alabama, but Alabama's one loss. I understand the dynasty thing of it. It just doesn't make sense. Give us a 12-team playoff so you can earn it with a conference championship. Know you're in for sure. And some other teams have a chance. Plus, you'll probably get the top 6 that are in it right now in the playoff. So there's no discussion. You get to get out there and prove it. And then I think 12 is the perfect number, because once you get past 12, man, the best team in the country is not past that for sure. But 12 keeps the regular season entertaining and makes conference championships mean even more. The auto bid, I love auto bids. The top 4 get that bye. You have to win your conference championship to get a bye. I think that's awesome. Hopefully we see it, because these rankings, although they normally favor Clemson and get us in, overall are bogus and really hurt teams like TCU. But we'll see what happens this week. The Tigers get an Irish team who's pretty bad at home, but road warriors and dominant on the road. Luckily, we get them in South Bend, so it should be fun. We'll get into it, and we'll see what the rankings look like next week.